going on, Jerome's, as I just had a cat butthole put in my face. Anyways, Minnesota Vikings could and should be looking for the quarterback of the future. And even though the Vikings are currently 2-4, I understand that some fans want the Vikings to tank and crater out, but it's probably not going to happen. And even though Caleb Williams, Drake May certainly are the apple of the Vikings' eye, they always can trade up, and you draft where you draft. And the more important thing is about taking quality players wherever you select and developing them. And if you don't have a system of development, it really doesn't matter how high your draft pick is. So we've been over this a bunch. And as of right now, the Vikings are currently holding the number 7 overall pick. We'll get to the mock draft here in a second. But the Vikings currently sitting at 7 at 2-4. Now, remember, draft order doesn't factor in head-to-head. It's determined by strength of schedule. So if teams are tied with the same record, say Chicago and Denver both end up 1-16. The higher pick goes to whoever has the weaker schedule. So you have a worse record against a weaker schedule, or same record, just you do terrible against a weaker schedule. That's how it works out. So head-to-head does not matter in that regard. Currently, the Bears hold the 1 and 2 pick, which is just, it's hilarious for me. Where Ryan Poles came in and said, like, we're going to take over the North and never give it back. Well, the Vikings don't have it, the Packers don't have it, the Lions have it, but you know who doesn't have it? The Bears. I mean, and also, conceivably, the Bears could end up with back-to-back championships in terms of having the number 1 overall pick. And I'm talking about a natural number 1 pick, a.k.a. the worst record in the league, but they also could end up with it if Carolina ends up blanking. All right, so, I mean, the trade with Bryce Young, I mean, that's looking relatively good for the Bears right now. Now, I respect Darnell Wright, but, I mean, Jalen Carter on Chicago would have been a problem. Man. But the Bears right now at 1 and 2, and I don't think they keep Justin Fields. Also, a big factor in that is that Ryan Poles, their current GM, who knows if he's going to be back next year. So that's a factor as well. You could be like, well, I didn't draft him, blah, 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 right? Then you got the Broncos at 3. Even though Russ's contract is horrifically bad, I think that they still would go quarterback in that spot because how many times are you up in the stratosphere? And is it a spot where, say this holds, say Chicago gets 1 and 2. I think they take a quarterback at 1, whether it's Williams or May, whoever, and they go to Chicago and they're going to ruin him. And they could trade 2 to another quarterback needy team, or they could just stick and pick and take Marvin Harrison Jr., or they could trade down from 2 and 3, get an extra pick from Denver, so that way Denver protects from other teams jumping them, so they can take their quarterback of choice, and then they still get Harrison at 3. Could be good either way. Arizona at 4, Monty Ossenfort. Arizona's been sort of plucky, but I think that they purposely fielded a weak inside, especially with Kyler on IR and new GM Monty Ossenfort, the pride of the University of Minnesota. Morris obviously wants to just drive this thing into the ground, and that's what the Arizona Cardinals are currently doing at this point. Although they beat the Cowboys, which is great, man. I do think that they will look to trade Kyler and draft their own guy. Daniel Jones and the Giants, they may be stuck together. And maybe they'll look to try and get out from his contract after 1 year. Just eat that dead cap and go for quarterback. Who knows? Patriots 100% are done with Mac Jones. They're done. And also, I think Belichick might be done. I think he may just retire, or Kraft might just straight up fire him, because this is, I mean, it's one thing just to be bad because of lack of talent, but they have lack of talent and they're sloppy and undisciplined. It's very un-Belichickian. There you go. They got the Vikings at 7. Currently them and the Tennessee Titans are 2 and 4. Same winning percentage, but also the Vikings do have a weaker strength of schedule, which gives them the higher pick. So the Vikings' strength of schedule is 505, Tennessee 524. So there you go. And the Vikings, chilling at 7, and I think that their pick is just going to go, their pick is going to go lower in the draft, depending on how you see it, because frankly, even though the Vikings lose to the Niners, as we pointed out, weeks 8 to 14, 6 very winnable games at the Packers, at Falcons, hosting the Saints, at Broncos and Bears, and then at the Raiders. And frankly, I mean, the Vikings probably will be favored in at least 4 of these games. And if they're dogs, it will be by a field goal or less. So I think the Vikings actually could make some hay in the middle of the schedule, much to the chagrin of the people who want to be at the top of the draft, which, again, I understand. But also the batting average at the top of the draft, it ain't great, man. It ain't great, and especially with this quarterback class, you certainly can just stick and pick. And there's going to be maybe 5-6 quarterbacks in the first round, probably 10 in the top 100, and all these guys are going to bring something different to the table. I understand Williams, I understand Drake May, I fully understand that, but is there a chance that both of them bust? Yes, it is certainly possible. Is it possible that one of these top 2 quarterbacks become a generational talent? Yes, that's also extremely plausible as well. So I actually do think that the Vikings are, again, with the Vikings schedule, and we need to reiterate, it's not a talent issue with the Vikings. Even with Justin Jefferson out, it isn't. And the Vikings, in all of their losses, have just kicked themselves in the groin consistently with mental mistakes, mental errors, and all these things are fixable in season. They just got to get their ish going. And frankly, I think they got a shot to shock the world on Monday night against the Niners, especially if McCaffrey and or Debo miss. But that's beside the point. But I think the Vikings could potentially make a push in the middle of the season, potentially get their ass back into playoff contention. And also, you have all 3 of the last games are in division, which is a big factor. And the Lions, the Lions are looking top dog right now. And it is what it is, but I think the Lions are due for a regression to the mean. And also, they do have a couple tough games coming up. They're on the road in Baltimore on Sunday, I believe, and it could be a factor. Vikings having three games at the end of the season in division. Also, all 3 of the games are indoors, so that's a factor for the Vikes as well. So I think that the Vikings currently at 7. I think they'll probably end up, well, if they make the playoffs, they'll end up in the teens or the 20s. Much to the chagrin of all the people. But again, you draft where you draft. Like, how do the Ravens continually replenish their talented roster when they're consistently drafting towards the back end of the first round or trading out? That's what happens, man. And looking at the Tankathon mock draft, so Williams, Harrison Jr., they don't factor in trades here. They're just straight up sticking and picking. Drake May going to the Broncos. I actually like that fit a lot. Brock Bowers goes to the Cardinals. Could you imagine them just taking a tight end at 4? Bowers is a stud, don't get me wrong, but also, didn't they just take McBride last year in the 3rd round? But I understand that was the previous regime. But I don't know, man. I don't know. Fashanu going to the Giants. So they're replacing Evan Neal, and they're drafting a right tackle at 5. I don't know. Because Andrew Thomas obviously said Joe Alt going to the Patriots at 6, sure. Jared Verse to the Vikings at 7. Now, Jared Verse is a stud, but I actually think that the Vikings fans may revolt if they just take an edge rusher at 7. Now, edge could be a larger need than you think, depending on what happens with Daniil and Davenport and Wanham, all who are in contract years. But I don't know. Like, if I had my druthers here, I would just take a quarterback. Or if you want to wait for the 2nd round, sure, which we'll get to. But Zerzan Newton is an absolute stud and a monster. The pride of Illinois. Frankly, the Vikings' defensive line needs a complete overhaul. Newton would be huge. I absolutely love his game. He's been the anchor for Illinois for the last couple seasons, and I love him, man. I absolutely love him. Neighbors goes to the Falcons. Surprised the Falcons didn't go quarterback in the spot. Let's see, Latham going to the Commies, Chop Robinson. Penn State's got some dudes this year. Leonard Taylor III, who I like a lot at the U. Quinn Ewers ends up going to the Rams at 19, 3rd quarterback off the board. Wish you could find a prop bet. I think that there will be at least 3 quarterbacks taken in the top 10. Minimum. Potentially even 4 because of the quarterback tax. I understand right now it's sort of laid back, but as they're jockeying a position at the top of the draft, but there's going to be a lot of quarterback needy teams, and even though the draft is going to be pretty deep at quarterback, potentially the deepest class ever, I think teams are still going to get after it at the quarterback position. Shedeur Sanders, quarterback 4 off the board, going to the Buccaneers. I kind of like that. I do kind of like that fit. And then also, Deion's going to be the Bucs coach within 2 seconds, right? That's what's going to happen. It's going to happen. Then 2nd round. So then you see a little bit of a run on quarterbacks. Michael Penix Jr., 2nd round, going to the Patriots. I actually like that fit. I think Penix does have the mentality and distribution to be able to function in New England. Although, is Belichick going to be there? Don't know. Vikings go quarterback at 40. Bo. Bo Nix, where again, people poo-poo on Bo Nix because of what he did at Auburn. He's very much whatever. But at Oregon, especially this season, he's really reinvented himself. And even though Oregon, I understand that they lost at Washington, it wasn't Bo's fault. I mean, Bo has been dealing this year. He's got NFL size. He's got NFL arm. He's got a little bit of moxie. I feel like he does take calculated chances, but his accuracy is also greatly improved. And I would feel fine with this. Like, frankly, verse at 7. If the Vikings are going to go D-line at 7, I mean, I would take Newton in this spot. And frankly, I think it will eventually shake out where if you're at 7 and Ewers is on the board, or Penix or McCarthy or Nix is there, and you take them, I don't think people will blink by the time April rolls around. I just really don't think so. But the Vikings go edge rusher, then they get quarterback in the second round. I remember the Vikings don't have a third-round pick because of the T.J. Hockenson trade, but they also have an extra fourth because of the Hockenson trade. So right now they're sitting at 1, 2, 4, 4, 5, 5, and 6, and 6 for their picks. So I'm sure that there's other stuff like. But also, if the Vikings go quarterback at 7, I mean, if you circled around to 40 in this specific mock draft, it got Chris Jenkins. I love Chris Jenkins, man. Like, he's got the DNA. You know, his pops was a magnificent nose tackle. Jenkins, the younger, is a little bit more of a 3-tech, but he's a guy that's got penetration. He's a guy that is a complete enforcer along the line of scrimmage, and he does reset the line. He's great, man. He's great. So, I mean, this is a very decent draft for in the trenches. Ooh, I also love me some Cooper Beebe if the Vikings want to go that route. So, there you go. J.J. McCarthy going to the Seahawks at 52. Is there other quarterbacks? Let's see. No. All right, so 5 go in the first 2 rounds. Actually, ooh. I ignored the third round because the Vikings don't have a third-round pick. But let's see here. All right, so let's recap. 4 in the first round. Then you got 5, 6, 7. Yeah, all right, so 7 quarterbacks have gone so far through 2 rounds. And round 3, Cam Ward going to the Falcons. I kind of like that. Although I feel like the perfect fit is Shedeur Sanders with the Falcons, and then find Arthur Smith, and then Deion goes there. Maybe after a year, who knows? So 8 quarterbacks in the first 3 rounds. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. I actually think it could be 10 in the first 3 rounds, or approximately the top 100. So the Vikings, do get a quarterback in the spot. They do address edge, which could be a major need depending on what happens in free agency. But overall, we'll see. We'll see, man. But your thoughts are thoughts. Vikings currently hold the number 7 overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft. Let us know your thoughts and our thoughts in the comment section below. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. Want to support the work? Put a little something in the Venmo. But till next time, Skol, production value.